taking us through the infected zone.
It's the only option we've got.
When I was told about the 2010 British science fiction horror film, Monsters, I was told that people loved it, it was a great movie, it had monsters in it, and understandably, from the trailer, it looks intriguing. I had started watching this movie, and I watched the first few minutes of it, and I fell off for some reason, and then I actually sat down and finished it. And I understand why I fell off the first time, and why I should have never watched it. Because good grief, I don't know what people were talking about, but it was, for me personally, an entire waste of freaking time. I want you to take a look at the trailer, and even just the little clip that I showed you there, and please tell me if this is something you would want to see. Because based on what I can see, the very limited information that I have, it looks badass. It looks like they're gonna be a bunch of aliens that come down to Earth. People have to fight for their lives, and based on what they said about it being absorbing and thrilling and moving, that is exactly what we're going to have to see, what we're going to have to witness. And when you market the trailer in such a way, that is exactly what you're expecting when you go into this movie.
I repeat, this is an emergency. Evacuate immediately. I repeat, this is
Liars! This movie, only the places that you've seen in the trailer are the only parts where we get to see monsters actually interacting with the cast. This movie was many things, and absorbing, thrilling, and moving is not what I would call it. It's almost as though they watched a completely different movie and decide to leave a review on this one because they confused it with something else.
The meteorologist. There's this guy that lived next door to me when I was attempting to go to college. Big stoner. And his name was Joel.
Boring! See, in the high grounds, you're safe. In the rivers, you're not safe. If you don't bother them, they don't bother you. When the American planes come, the creatures... Kill me now!
Suburban homes. You know, everything that we've been through, it won't matter anymore. How old do you think that...
See, do you want to know what the general plot for this stupid movie was? Okay, so this photographer is asked by his boss or some big name guy to help his daughter, his important daughter, back home to America. The daughter has a fiance back at home, which she conveniently starts forgetting about because she starts falling in love with the photographer guy, and both of them start kind of crushing on each other and giving each other the eyes. Then she uses her engagement ring to bribe some Mexican people to carry them through the infected zone where all the aliens are having babies in the trees. But not really, because these so-called eggs that they're having are more so like fungus or plants that like flashlight back to you if you flashlight to them. I don't know. Then the guides get killed off and was essentially 3 of the 5 minutes in which we see the monsters as a danger. And I say that in quotations. The other 2 minutes happen at the end of the movie where there is some false suspense that, oh, the monsters are gonna get them, but not really, because you find out that these 2 giant octopi with crab legs are feeling up each other, and then the 2 humans, the guy and the girl that are crushing on each other, are like looking at them in awe while the monsters just ignore them. The girl actually kisses the guy and says she doesn't want to go home, and the military people that he called prior to come and get her so they can bring her back to her dad come and get her and cart her off away from the guy, and the movie ends.
Well, that was anticlimactic.
I swear to God, the majority of this movie was them walking and talking and walking and eyeing each other. I don't know why the movie was called Monsters, because that was clearly not the focus at all. This movie had 2%, if even that, to do with monsters, and 98% to do with the photographer wanting to bang the girl and her wanting to bang him, and him like trying to get her over the border. The monsters aren't even dangerous because the Mexicans tell them that the monsters don't bother if you don't bother them. They only get pissed off if there's jets bombing the area. And the monsters are literal freaking octopi. You seriously can't make this shit up. I don't understand why people are rooting for this movie so heavily. I don't know, man. It was a literal waste of time. It was so boring and tedious that I had to find other things to do on my computer while I was watching. And the thing that pissed me off is when you look at the trailer, despite its titular allusions to the monstrous threats that are supposed to be happening, they don't once market the trailer to show you that the film's central focus is the developing relationship between the photographer and the daughter, with limited attention paid to the freaking ETs. That is literally it. And even if you're like, that's a good movie, I would want to watch the development of their amorous relationship, there's no payoff. Because when she finally is like, oh, I want to kiss you, I like you now. She's carted away, and then he never sees her again. It's like, it's the kind of review that people would leave, like, actually watch the movie, that would say something about it being monotonous and having an unfulfilling resolution. It's the kind of movie that you would go into a theater and pay your ticket for, and you would sit there, and 40 minutes would go by, you're looking at your phone, and you're like, what time is it? What, is something going to happen? Because nothing is happening. There's no slow burn unless you're like, I want to watch some CGI octopus with crab legs in the freaking dark do a light show as they're touching each other and not really doing anything. That is what I paid my money for. Screw the 98% of the movie. I just wanted to see this very brief segment of monsters feeling each other with their tentacles. Because that's what we're here for, right? It's not, the focal, it's not even about the monsters. I guess you can argue that this scene right here where the guides get eaten, that's where things are like, okay, I can kind of understand it. And as quickly as it started up, the monsters just leave, and then there's no more danger. I never feel as though the characters are actually ever in danger. And that is freaking sad. Honestly, I'm left wondering and pondering the purpose and intended audience of this film. While the concept of a world in the background and lore building and world building is intriguing, the execution of the narrative feels more akin to a short film, something that was supposed to be 10 minutes long rather than a feature-length presentation. Despite being a fan of monsters, I'm left with a sense of disappointment and dissatisfaction with this movie because it is titled Monsters. I mean, it's supposed to feature creatures. It's how the trailer marketed the movie. The execution definitely falls short with any ounce of expectation you would have had, even if you had none. With the creatures relegated to a mere backdrop, and them not fulfilling their promise that they put in the trailer, which was to make the monsters and the thrill and the horror the central aspect of the story, which it most certainly wasn't. And for that, I am very irate. It is very deceptive, and even though I had seen the trailer a long time ago, I went back and watched it because I wanted to know whether or not I made a mistake, and I actually watched the trailer for something else, only to discover that I was in fact validated in my criticisms, because the trailer itself made the monsters the central focus.
Be quiet, be quiet.
You thought I was just spouting nonsense. Let me clue you in. The supposed monstrous attack scene that I just showed that was also featured in the trailer, not to mention when you can actually ever see anything because everything's so freaking dark, is the only time we get a glimpse of these creatures being remotely threatening. And even then, they keep their freaking octopus faces hidden for the majority of the scene. At this point, it seems as though their only purpose that they serve is wiping out a few Mexican extras. It is an utter disgrace that the filmmaker sought to deceive the audiences into thinking they were getting a thrilling, action-packed, suspenseful monster movie akin to Jurassic Park, only to serve up a lackluster, yawn-inducing romance instead. That wasn't even really a romance with a payoff. If they truly intended to make this a romance film, they should have been upfront about it. However, given the emphasis on the monsters in the marketing of the film, they should have delivered it on this front. But of course they wouldn't, because they want people to actually watch the movie. To make matters even worse, the plot was freaking weak. The characters are one-dimensional, and I don't necessarily hate the girl character, like the romance thing. If you had taken all the monster stuff out of it and even just focused on the romance, I could understand. But the thing is, the movie didn't know what it wanted to be, and the CGI is so subpar. A more fitting approach would have been to center the story around the monsters, providing a glimpse into their habitat and their behaviors, as well as developing a more compelling plot and well-rounded characters. I mean, this could have led to a truly thrilling and suspenseful experience, complete with action and scares, befitting of the genre that the filmmaker sought to exploit, being monsters, which is what they named their movie. Dude, what a glaring example of false advertising, and it is so annoying when films do this. I know that this film is old, and it's from 2010, but still, it doesn't excuse the fact that it is a complete shitty thing to do to deceive the audience into thinking they're getting one thing, only to give them something completely different. In my opinion, this Execution actually had a more detrimental impact on the film. It resulted in a negative perception among the audience. Retitle the movie or tone down the romance element. Most importantly, give us a payoff with either thing that you're doing. Remove all the dead air of people walking around and staring at each other. Good grief. Thanks so much for watching. This has been Ultiori. You ask, we answer.